Hello guys, welcome to our channel today. We're going to briefly explain you about civilization. At the end of Antarctica, the camera drifts across a world of white. A continent so vast, it holds 90% of Earth's ice, and yet it is more empty than the moon. Antarctica, a place without ancient ruins, without cities, without a trace of human memory. It is Earth's final blank page, the last silence of the planet. But silence is not emptiness. Beneath its crushing glaciers lies a story sealed away for millions of years. A land locked under ice since long before the first human rose from the African savanna. What sleeps below is older than pyramids, older than firelight, older even than the human idea of history itself. Strange whispers have risen from this frozen void. Maps drawn centuries before Antarctica's discovery seem to sketch its coastline without ice. Radar signals from satellites pierce downward, revealing shadows of mountains, valleys, and, in places, shapes too precise to be natural. In the age of melting, as the ice recedes, fragments of geometry emerge, lines and angles that defy the wildness of nature. If true, they suggest a secret more staggering than any buried treasure. That the oldest civilization may not lie in deserts or jungles, but beneath Antarctica itself, hidden in darkness, preserved by the cold. And so enter scientists on, not one man, but the embodiment of generations of explorers, physicists, glaciologists, all who dared to pierce the veil of Antarctica. Through satellites, through drilling, through sheer human endurance, dawn stands as science's restless question. What lies beneath the last silence of Earth? Snow began to linger. Glaciers spread. Forests, once green and defiant, bowed to frost. One by one, ecosystems collapsed under the weight of ice. The final forest gave way to silence. By 15 million years ago, Antarctica was almost entirely sealed in white. By 2.5 million years ago, its fate was complete, the largest frozen desert on Earth. Yet in silence, there are echoes. Fossils remain to remind us that the ice is not eternal, that what appears dead once thrived. The continent has become a paradox, the most inhospitable place on Earth, concealing beneath it the memory of one of the most fertile. This paradox has not gone unnoticed by human eyes. In the early centuries of exploration, when maps were guides into the unknown, some depictions of the southern world sparked wonder. The Piri Reis map of 1513, compiled from older charts, appeared to show a southern coastline uncannily similar to the shape of Antarctica, and some argued, without the shroud of ice. Later, in 1531, the Orontius Phineas map depicted a massive southern continent, again resembling Antarctica, with rivers and mountains exposed. Skeptics insist these maps are accidents, products of imagination, or misinterpretations of South America. Yet their lines haunt the imagination. Could they be fragments of a deeper memory? Could navigators of a forgotten age have glimpsed the continent before it was locked in ice? The evidence is ambiguous, the speculation unresolved. But in the frozen silence, ambiguity becomes fuel for wonder. The maps whisper the possibility of an ancient knowledge, one that predates the modern discovery of Antarctica by centuries, perhaps millennia. It is here that mystery takes root. The continent we see as a wasteland was not always so. It was once a realm of life, then a realm of silence. What was lost in that transition? What truths remained buried beneath the ice, preserved as though under glass, waiting for the thaw of time? The Age of White Silence is not simply the story of a climate shift. It is the story of erasure. It is the memory of a living land wiped clean by cold, leaving only a blank page behind. Yet blankness is not absence. Beneath the surface, fossils sleep, lakes remain liquid under miles of ice, and mountains rise unseen. This is why Antarctica is more than an empty pole. It is a locked archive of Earth's past. To open it would be to read a lost chapter of planetary history, one that stretches from lush rainforests to frozen silence, from Gondwana's cradle to the cold tomb of today. And in the shadows of that story, human imagination stirs. If forests and rivers once thrived where glaciers now stand, what else might have flourished here? If early maps truly hint at an ice-free Antarctica, did someone witness it and when? The continent has no ancient temples on its surface, no inscriptions on its stones. But under the ice, in valleys unseen, could something remain? Not merely fossils of trees, but fossils of culture? Could Antarctica, long thought the emptiest place on Earth, conceal a secret civilization preserved in the heart of its silence? The age of white silence raises the first question, a question that generations of explorers, scientists, and dreamers have carried to the edge of the world. What truly lies beneath the ice?
The age of white silence had stretched for tens of millions of years. Forests had perished, rivers had frozen, and Antarctica had descended into its long reign of ice. For ages uncounted, it remained unseen, unheard, untouched, a continent without witnesses. But silence is not eternal. The veil was destined to lift, not by the hand of time, but by human hunger for discovery. The first rumors of a southern land did not come from sight, but from myth. Ancient philosophers like Aristotle and Ptolemy imagined a terra australis, a great southern land required, they thought, to balance the continents of the north. For centuries, it remained only speculation, a phantom drawn on maps at the edge of knowledge. A place not yet real, but hauntingly necessary. The first real glimpse came with the Great Age of Navigation. In 1773, the British explorer James Cook pushed his ship, Resolution, southward through seas choked with ice. He crossed the Antarctic Circle for the first time in recorded history, sailing further than any before him. Yet the continent eluded him. Ice walls rose from the sea like ramparts, forbidding passage. Cook never set foot on the land itself. Still, he sensed its enormity. In his journal, he wrote of a country doomed by nature never once to feel the warmth of the sun. It would take another generation before Antarctica revealed itself to human eyes. In 1820, 3 separate expeditions, led by Fabian von Bellingshausen of Russia, Edward Bransfield of Britain, and Nathaniel Palmer of the United States, each reported seeing the edge of the Antarctic mainland. A continent had at last emerged from myth into fact. Yet knowledge came at a cost. Antarctica demanded a price for every approach. The seas that guarded it were among the most violent on Earth, whipped by the circumpolar winds. Icebergs the size of cathedrals drifted silently, splintering ships like fragile toys. Temperatures plummeted, storms raged, and compasses faltered near the pole. To step into this world was to enter a realm indifferent to human survival. Still, the pursuit continued. The 19th century gave rise to the heroic age of Antarctic exploration, a chapter in which men wagered their lives against the frozen void. Ernest Shackleton, Robert Falcon Scott, and Roald Amundsen became names etched into the mythology of human endurance. Shackleton's expeditions embodied resilience. His ship, the Endurance, was trapped and crushed by pack ice in 1915. Stranded with his crew on drifting floes, Shackleton led a desperate escape across storm-torn seas in open lifeboats. Against all odds, every man survived. The ice had swallowed the ship, but Shackleton's leadership became legend, a reminder that Antarctica does not remember names. It does not distinguish between the sailor crushed in pack ice a century ago and the researcher bent over instruments today. To the continent, they are all the same, brief sparks against the eternal frost. And yet, through those sparks, Antarctica is slowly unveiled. Among them rises a figure we call Dawn. Not one man, not one lifetime, but the embodiment of many. Dawn is the glaciologist tracing ancient layers of snow with a coring drill. Dawn is the climatologist tracking carbon dioxide preserved in frozen bubbles of air. Dawn is the explorer staring across an endless plain, wondering what lies beneath his boots. In him, the scattered work of generations converges, a symbol of humanity's restless hunger to pierce the veil of the unknown. For Dawn, Antarctica is not merely a desert of ice. It is a paradox. a continent seemingly mute, yet murmuring secrets through data, maps, and signals. A place that resists survival, yet conceals the story of Earth itself. What begins as science soon deepens into obsession. Beneath the frozen silence, Dawn senses the outline of something that may not wish to be found. The journey begins with the satellites. In the late 20th century, eyes in orbit began to gaze down upon Antarctica with instruments capable of peeling away its shroud. What they saw unsettled the certainty of maps. Beneath kilometers of ice, radar beams traced mountain ranges no human had ever glimpsed, the Gambert-Sev subglacial mountains, stretching across 1,000 kilometers, as vast as the Alps, yet utterly buried in darkness. Their jagged peaks had never felt wind or rain, sealed away for over 30 million years. Then came stranger patterns. Radar reflections hinted at formations that seemed too sharp, too geometric, to belong to chance. Angles and alignments appeared where only randomness was expected. Were these merely quirks of geology, or whispers of something made, not born? Science answered with caution, yet the questions multiplied. Dawn followed the anomalies deeper. Beneath 4 kilometers of East Antarctic ice, researchers drilled into Lake Vostok, a body of liquid water the size of Lake Ontario, sealed beneath ice for perhaps 15 million years. The pressure, the heat of Earth's crust, and the insulating weight of glaciers kept it from freezing. In its isolation, life endured. Microbes emerged from samples, living in conditions no human could withstand. For Dawn, this was no mere discovery of extremophiles. It was a revelation. If life persisted here, in total darkness, what else might be preserved in this locked world? NASA took note. The hidden lakes of Antarctica became analogs for the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn, Europa and Enceladus, where oceans are sealed beneath crusts of ice. If microbes lived in Lake Vostok, might alien oceans also harbor life? Dawn realized that Antarctica was not only Earth's last frontier, but also its closest mirror to extraterrestrial worlds. To study this land was to rehearse humanity's search for life beyond Earth. And yet, anomalies deepened. In 2018, instruments detected unusual heat signatures beneath West Antarctica, vast regions where the ice thinned from below, as if warmed by something other than the sun. Scientists pointed to geothermal activity, a hidden network of volcanoes buried under ice. But the heat raised unsettling possibilities. If volcanoes slept here, could they awaken? Could they destabilize glaciers already weakened by climate change? Dawn traced these signals with unease, sensing forces at work in the continent's heart that science barely understood. Then there were the neutrinos. At the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, a lattice of sensors buried in Antarctic ice, physicists watched for ghostly particles passing through Earth. Most came from distant galaxies, carrying messages from cosmic events billions of years away. But a few behaved strangely. They seemed to rise from beneath the continent, traveling upward as though emerging from another realm. Some proposed they were signals of new physics, particles not accounted for in the standard model, perhaps even hints of a parallel universe brushing against our own. For Dawn, these were not isolated puzzles. They were fragments of a larger pattern, a tapestry woven beneath Antarctica's silence. Mountains no eye had seen, lakes sealed for millions of years, heat rising from hidden depths, and particles that defied the known laws of physics. Each discovery was both a breakthrough and a question mark. Each pulled him further into the conviction that Antarctica was not what it seemed. And still, the strangest whispers came not from instruments, but from maps centuries old. The Piri-Reis map, drawn in 1513, appeared to show a southern coast resembling Antarctica without ice. Later, the Orontius Phineas map depicted a landmass strikingly similar, rivers and mountains included. Historians argued that these were mistakes, copies of imperfect charts. Yet to Dawn, the coincidence gnawed at reason. How could cartographers of the 16th century sketch a land hidden from their age? Could fragments of knowledge have survived from a time when Antarctica was ice-free? Or was there another source? Travelers unknown, civilizations forgotten, who had glimpsed the land before the freeze. Science demanded restraint, but imagination demanded more. Don walked between them, torn. He stood on the ice, aware that his own footsteps were brief, yet beneath him stretched a record of millions of years. He felt the weight of a continent that had erased forests, entombed rivers, and preserved secrets no human had ever touched. He knew the data, the peer-reviewed journals, the calibrated machines. But he also knew the silence, vast and eloquent, pressing like a question into the human mind. And so Don became more than a scientist. He became a symbol of exploration itself, the restless tension between fact and mystery, between knowledge and speculation. His obsession was not madness, but the essence of curiosity. If there is something beneath the ice we are not meant to find, then perhaps it is precisely what we must seek. Antarctica endures, indifferent. It offers no answers freely. It buries its stories under kilometers of silence. Yet through Dawn, through the countless men and women who drill, measure, and listen, humanity leans closer. Every anomaly, every reflection, every unexplained signal becomes another crack in the veil. The frozen continent waits, and Dawn, the eternal scientist, waits with it, listening, probing, haunted by a question that grows heavier with each discovery. What lies beneath the last silence of Earth?
For centuries, Antarctica appeared to be nothing more than a continent of death, a frozen tomb, sterile and absolute. Yet beneath its white shroud, something extraordinary stirred. What had long been imagined as solid ice was not solid at all. It was hollowed with rivers, carved with valleys, and filled with lakes that had not seen the sky for millions of years. It was here, beneath miles of silence, that the first true shock emerged. The story begins with Lake Vostok. Hidden beneath nearly 4 kilometers of East Antarctic ice, it is a body of water larger than Lake Ontario, stretching more than 250 kilometers in length. For 15 million years, it has been sealed away, untouched by wind, rain, or sunlight. When Soviet scientists first detected its presence in the 1990s using ice-penetrating radar, it seemed an impossibility. How could liquid water persist in such crushing cold? The answer lay in Earth's own hidden forces. The sheer weight of the overlying glacier pressed down, trapping heat and preventing the lake from freezing. Geothermal warmth seeped upward from the crust, feeding this secret sea. Beneath the continent of ice, Antarctica was not entirely frozen. It harbored pockets of fluid life. But liquid water was only the beginning. When Russian teams finally drilled to the surface of Lake Vostok in 2012, samples shocked the scientific world. Within them were signs of microbial life, organisms adapted to total isolation, thriving without sunlight, subsisting on minerals, and surviving pressures that would crush most forms of life. The lake was not sterile, it was alive. Other discoveries soon followed. Beneath West Antarctica, Lake Whillans was reached by an American expedition in 2013. Samples from its water revealed a bustling microbial ecosystem, with thousands of species living in a place cut off from the world for hundreds of thousands of years. Even more astonishing, these microbes seemed to feed not on sunlight, but on the chemistry of rocks and the slow grinding of glaciers. Where light could not penetrate, life had found another path. This revelation transformed the image of Antarctica forever. No longer was it merely a frozen grave. It had become a reservoir of hidden vitality. The discovery raised unsettling questions. If microbes endured here, in lakes buried beneath kilometers of ice, then what else might have survived? Could larger organisms, fish, crustaceans, perhaps even stranger creatures, have found refuge in these hidden waters? The speculation stirred unease, for isolation can preserve as well as extinguish. For Dawn, the symbol of exploration, the implications were staggering. Antarctica was no longer a continent of silence alone. It was a mirror reflecting possibilities far beyond Earth. NASA quickly saw the parallel. To study Lake Vostok was to glimpse Europa, Jupiter's frozen moon, where a global ocean lies sealed beneath an icy shell. To sample Lake Willans was to imagine Enceladus, Saturn's moon, whose geysers spray water from a hidden sea into space. If microbes thrived beneath Antarctica, then the odds of life on those alien worlds grew stronger. Antarctica became Earth's closest analog for extraterrestrial oceans. Yet the shock cut deeper. In discovering life beneath Antarctic ice, humanity learned that life does not require sunlight. It does not require open skies or fertile soil. It requires only chemistry, water, and time. This realization tore open the boundaries of possibility. Life might not be rare. It might be a principle of the universe, lurking wherever conditions allow, in icy moons, in the depths of Mars, perhaps even in the darkest corners of interstellar clouds. Still, the discoveries stirred disquiet as much as wonder. For the microbes of Lake Vostok had endured in total isolation for millions of years. Their world was alien, untouched by surface life. In such seclusion, evolution might have taken unexpected turns. Scientists feared contamination, that drilling could introduce modern microbes into pristine ecosystems, destroying them before they were truly understood. Others worried about what might be released, dormant organisms adapted to conditions unknown to humanity. The frozen lakes became both a scientific treasure and a source of caution. In the silence of his own reflections, Don felt the deeper weight of this revelation. If life can thrive in such secrecy, then the surface of Earth is no longer the whole of its story. The planet we inhabit is layered, divided, full of hidden realms. And each of those realms might hold its own histories, its own forms of survival, its own secrets. The shock beneath the ice was not simply microbial. It was existential. It forced humanity to confront the possibility that we are not only surrounded by hidden life, but that we may share the planet with entire ecosystems we have never seen. The Antarctic lakes are not isolated curiosities. More than 400 such bodies of water are known to exist beneath the ice, connected by subglacial rivers in a vast network. They pulse and drain in cycles, shifting under the weight of glaciers. In their hidden flow, they form an entire hydrological system, a secret underworld that could rival the surface itself in complexity. It is a second Earth beneath the first, sealed away by time. As the satellites trace these hidden waters, as the drills descend into darkness, the question grows louder. What else sleeps beneath? If microbes endure, might larger organisms also exist, preserved by the cold? Might Antarctica's lakes harbor not only life, but life unlike anything on the surface? The shock is not only in what was found, but in what remains possible. Antarctica, long imagined as sterile, has revealed vitality in its depths. It has revealed that silence does not mean lifelessness, and that even in the harshest conditions, life will cling, adapt, and persist. Yet for Don, and for all who study the frozen continent, this revelation carries an even heavier reflection. If Earth itself harbors hidden worlds of life beneath its ice, then perhaps we have only begun to scratch the surface of reality. Perhaps the cosmos is threaded with secret oceans, with ecosystems preserved in shadows. Perhaps life is not the exception, but the expectation. The shock beneath the ice is not merely scientific. It is philosophical. It is the realization that the boundaries of the known world are fragile, and that beneath them lie depths as yet unimagined. Antarctica is no longer just a continent. It is Earth's alien planet, a world within a world, a mirror of the cosmos itself. And in that mirror, humanity sees both wonder and warning. For if life thrives in such secrecy here, then perhaps life thrives in secrecy everywhere. Long before satellites traced the outlines of continents from orbit, long before explorers cut their way through Antarctic storms, there were maps. Strange maps, fragments of parchment and ink, preserved against all odds. And within their lines lay a puzzle that whispers of memory far older than the age in which they were drawn. The most famous of these is the Pyrie Reis map, created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral and cartographer. Etched upon gazelle skin, the map was a compilation of knowledge gathered from sailors, fragments of older charts, and stories passed along trade routes. Its lines are uneven, its colors faded, yet one detail has haunted scholars for centuries. At its southern edge, it seems to depict a coastline resembling Antarctica, not as the frozen wasteland we know today, but as a bare, ice-free land. The intrigue deepens when paired with another artifact, the Orontius Phineas map of 1531. This Renaissance-era chart shows a massive southern continent, its coast defined, its rivers flowing inward. Once again, Antarctica seems to emerge centuries before it was formally discovered. And once again, the continent appears not buried under ice, but mapped as if it were navigable, as if its features had been seen. How could this be? For centuries, the question has stirred both scholarship and speculation. Some argue coincidence, that what looks like Antarctica is nothing more than a distorted rendering of South America. Others propose cartographic error, the result of copying and misinterpretation from older, imperfect maps. Yet the possibility lingers. What if these charts preserve fragments of a knowledge long forgotten? What if there was a time, tens of thousands of years before modern history, when humans or someone else glimpsed Antarctica free of its ice? The suggestion is unsettling, for science tells us that Antarctica has been sealed beneath its frozen shroud for over 34 million years. The last time its coasts were bare, forests of beech and conifers stretched across its hills, and giant reptiles roamed its swamps. No human eye could have seen it, for humanity itself did not yet exist. And yet, the maps remain. To many scientists, the explanation is simpler. The Piri Reis map may have combined fragments of ancient charts, perhaps Phoenician or Greek, blended with error until coastlines shifted southward. The resemblance to Antarctica, they argue, is illusion. But for others, the temptation of deeper meaning persists. Could there have been a civilization with knowledge advanced enough to chart the globe in antiquity? A people erased from memory, their only echo embedded in maps that survived by chance? The very idea fractures the line between myth and science, for it calls to mind the lost civilizations of legend. Atlantis, Mu, the ancient seafarers whispered of in every corner of human culture. These were stories long dismissed as myth. Yet when maps appear to show the impossible, the myths grow heavier, more difficult to ignore. For Don, the explorer and scientist, the maps are less about certainty than about possibility. They are riddles carved into parchment, questions hidden within ink. He does not see them as proof of an ancient civilization, nor as mere accidents of copying. He sees them as symbols of the deep unknown, reminders that the human story may not be as simple as it appears. If the lines on those maps truly suggest Antarctica beneath its ice, then a haunting reflection emerges. Who walked those coasts before the ice entombed them? Who mapped a land that should have been forever hidden? Modern science brings its own tools to the puzzle. Ice core drilling reveals that Antarctica's ice sheet has advanced and retreated in rhythm with Earth's climate cycles. During warm interglacials, its coasts may have been partially exposed. Could fragments of such shorelines have been glimpsed by ancient sailors, passed down as distorted memory? Could oral traditions of a warmer, more open South have seeped into maps centuries later? Even today, radar imaging beneath the ice reveals mountain ranges, valleys, and coastlines long hidden, features eerily similar to those sketched by Phineas. The Gambert Seb Mountains, buried beneath thousands of meters of ice, form a range as vast as the Alps. The Piri Reis and Phineas maps, in their strange approximations, hint at coastlines that radar has only recently confirmed. Are these parallels coincidence, or do they speak of something more? Historians remain cautious, tethered to evidence. But explorers, dreamers, and philosophers linger on the edge of speculation. The idea of an ancient cartography, a memory that predates our recorded civilizations, pulls at imagination. It suggests that the rise of human knowledge may not have been a straight line upward, but a cycle, a rhythm of flourishing and forgetting, of civilizations rising and then vanishing, their traces buried beneath oceans, jungles, or ice. And Antarctica, the last untouched frontier, becomes the stage for the most haunting possibility of all, that the oldest memory of human civilization may lie not in deserts or ruins, but beneath the frozen silence of the South. The maps themselves cannot answer. They are mute fragments, their ink fading, their context lost. But they force a reflection deeper than their lines. They remind us that human history is still a mystery, that we are creatures of amnesia, our past as fragile as parchment. For Don, studying these echoes feels like listening to voices through ice, distant, distorted, impossible to decipher, yet undeniable in their presence. He reflects on a truth that chills him. If Antarctica was mapped before, then humanity was not the first to see it. Someone else, some other culture, some other time, may have gazed upon those coasts, walked those shores, and left behind only whispers in ink. The forbidden maps are not proof, but they are provocation. They stand as artifacts at the edge of reason, tempting the imagination to wander where evidence cannot yet follow. They call into question what is truly known, and what may lie concealed not just beneath the ice, but beneath memory itself. Antarctica, in this light, is not only Earth's last blank page. It is also its oldest palimpsest, a parchment written over and over, its earlier words faint but never fully erased. And in those ghostly lines, perhaps, lingers the memory of civilizations forgotten by time.
The silence of Antarctica is not broken by footsteps or wind. It is pierced by signals, invisible waves driven into the ice by machines that listen for echoes. These are the tools of modern exploration. Ice-penetrating radar, a technology once designed for warplanes and satellites, now turned downward, probing the hidden world below. In the early 2000s, NASA and European research teams swept their instruments across the White Desert. Their goal was scientific: to measure the thickness of the ice, to chart the buried rivers and lakes, to build models of how the frozen continent might change as the planet warms. Yet what they found deepened the mystery. Beneath the East Antarctic ice sheet, radar revealed vast mountain ranges, the Gamburtsev Mountains. Peaks as high as the Alps, valleys deep as the Rockies, stretching for more than 1,200 kilometers, entirely buried beneath ice 2 miles thick. No human had ever seen them. No eye had traced their ridges, yet radar etched them in astonishing clarity. It was as though a whole continent lay concealed, a hidden landscape imprisoned in silence. But mountains alone were not the shock. It was the shapes, the patterns that caught attention. Among the ridges and valleys, radar occasionally returned echoes of strange regularities. Linear ridges, angles too precise, voids that appeared unnaturally geometric. At first, scientists dismissed them as noise, distortions, artifacts of the radar beams scattering through fractured ice. Yet with each new survey, the anomalies persisted. Vast rectangular features, crosshatched lines, sharp right angles, patterns that did not resemble the chaotic sprawl of natural geology. For Don, these echoes became an obsession. Each scan was like a glimpse into another world, a ghost of something that should not exist. He pored over the data, tracing shapes that seemed to whisper of design. Were they the remnants of ancient volcanic activity, crystallized in symmetry? Or were they something more? The faint outline of architecture frozen in time? The scientific community urged caution. Geology, after all, often deceives. Crystals grow in angles, tectonic fractures cut in straight lines, glaciers carve patterns that mimic geometry. The human mind, wired to find order in chaos, sees pyramids in mountains and cities in shadows. Yet the whispers refuse to fade. The speculation spread beyond science. In quiet corners of discussion, some dared to suggest the impossible, that beneath Antarctica lay not only mountains, but structures. That ice concealed a forgotten chapter of Earth, a city entombed by the freeze of ages. To the cautious, it was fantasy. To Don, it was fuel. The thought haunted him, not because it promised proof of an ancient civilization, but because it forced a question: how much of the world remains unseen? If radar could reveal an entire hidden mountain range, what else might wait beneath the ice? What else might lie beyond the threshold of visibility? Each anomaly was a riddle, a triangular echo, sharper than erosion should allow. A grid-like formation stretching for kilometers. Cavernous voids whose dimensions suggested architecture, not accident. No conclusive evidence emerged, yet the shadows remained. And as Don stared at the scans, objectivity began to blur. The pursuit of knowledge shifted into something almost mythic. He began to imagine the possibilities with the fervor of those who had once mapped Atlantis or sought El Dorado. Only now, the search was not for gold or glory, but for the truth frozen in the oldest silence on Earth. If the patterns were natural, they were extraordinary, geology sculpted in forms that mocked human imagination. But if they were not natural, if they were truly remnants of design, then the implications were staggering. It would mean that civilization existed at a time when Antarctica was free of ice, tens of millions of years before humanity. Or worse still, it would mean that the human timeline itself was incomplete, that another intelligence had walked the Earth long before recorded memory. The radar signals became more than data. They became whispers from beneath time. In 2018, a joint European and NASA mission mapped the Wilkes Land anomaly, a massive gravitational disturbance buried beneath the ice. Stretching over 300 kilometers, it suggested either a colossal impact crater or something stranger still. Some speculated an asteroid strike that had changed Earth's history. Others saw, in its perfect circular symmetry, the hint of structure. Once again, science stood cautious, but imagination ran ahead. The echoes pressed deeper into Don's mind. Antarctica was not only a landscape, but a veil. And beneath that veil, something vast stirred. Mountains, craters, patterns, anomalies. The data whispered that what lay below was not only natural, but layered, deliberate, enigmatic. In the glow of his instruments, Don reflected on the fragility of scientific certainty. Every discovery in Antarctica had been a shock. Mountains as tall as the Alps buried from sight, lakes sealed away for millions of years, microbes thriving where life should be impossible. Why, then, should geometry beneath the ice be dismissed so quickly? Why not allow the possibility that something more, something unimagined, could be waiting? The obsession became personal. Each anomaly was a riddle calling to him. Each radar scan felt like a message from the past, a map pointing toward a secret he was not yet ready to confront. And in that quiet obsession, a philosophical reflection emerged. Perhaps it did not matter whether the echoes revealed mountains, craters, or forgotten cities. What mattered was what they awakened, the reminder that the Earth is not fully known, that beneath its surface, in layers of ice, stone, and silence, it holds mysteries as profound as any in the stars. The radar beams do not lie. They pierce the white shroud and return with whispers of form. But interpretation is left to the human mind, a mind forever drawn to patterns, forever searching for meaning in noise. For Don, the difference between geology and architecture began to dissolve. Every peak could be a pyramid. Every cavern could be a hall. Every line could be the ghost of a civilization erased by ice. The pursuit of truth had become mythic. And myth, in Antarctica, is never far from reality. The echoes remain, sharp, silent, geometric. Whether they are the trick of stone and ice or the remnants of something older, their presence deepens the mystery. Antarctica has always been Earth's final blank page. Now, it seems it may also be its most encrypted. And as Don stares into the patterns carved not by ink, but by radar waves, he feels the weight of obsession, that he is no longer simply mapping ice, but peering into the possibility of a city frozen in time. Antarctica is not only a landscape, it is an instrument, a vast, frozen observatory carved by nature itself, a place where the deepest mysteries of the cosmos reveal themselves in silence. At the heart of this frozen cathedral lies the Ice Cube Neutrino Observatory, an experiment unlike any other. Buried beneath a cubic kilometer of Antarctic ice, thousands of sensors hang suspended in shafts drilled deep into the glacier. They do not search for stars, nor for galaxies. They search for whispers, particles so elusive they can pass through entire planets without leaving a trace. These are neutrinos, the ghost particles of the universe. Born in the hearts of supernovae, forged in black holes, streaming endlessly from the Big Bang itself. Billions pass through every square centimeter of Earth each second, unseen, unfelt, as though matter were transparent to them. Only in Antarctica's clarity, where the ice is pure and ancient, can they sometimes be caught. Faint flashes of blue light in the darkness, the death cries of particles colliding with atoms. Ice Cube has captured neutrinos from distant galaxies, carrying messages older than humanity. But it has also found anomalies, particles that defy the rules of physics. In 2016 and 2018, strange detections shook the scientific world. High-energy particles seemed to emerge from the ice itself, moving upward instead of downward. Cosmic rays, by all known laws, should descend from space, not rise from Earth. These detections suggested something radical, that impossible particles had punched through the planet from below, ignoring the dense matter that should have destroyed them. The implications were staggering. Some physicists proposed exotic explanations, sterile neutrinos, hypothetical particles beyond the standard model of physics. Others whispered of something stranger, that these particles might be evidence of a parallel universe where the laws of physics run in reverse, touching ours at the frozen edge of the world. For Don, these anomalies fused with his growing obsession. The whispers beneath the ice were no longer only geological or cartographic. They were cosmic. Antarctica was not just a continent. It was a boundary, a threshold between worlds. The notion was as terrifying as it was beautiful. Could the same continent that hides lost mountains and forbidden maps also serve as a cosmic gateway? Could the frozen silence be not only a vault of Earth's past, but a window into deeper dimensions of reality? In the reflections of Don's mind, the pieces began to blur. The microbes in Lake Vostok, sealed in isolation, were not unlike neutrinos slipping through matter unseen. The radar geometries buried beneath ice were not unlike the strange alignments of physics itself, patterns hinting at order beneath chaos. Perhaps, he thought, the civilizations hinted at in forbidden maps had glimpsed truths of physics that modern science is only now rediscovering. The speculation grew heavier with each anomaly, cosmic rays entering from impossible angles, neutrinos that refused to obey known laws. The Antarctic plateau became not only a desert of ice, but a canvas upon which the universe scrawled its riddles. Scientists, cautious as ever, debated. Was it noise in the instruments? A misinterpretation of rare events? Or was it the beginning of new physics, evidence that the standard model, so carefully built, was only a fragment of truth? If true, the implications reached beyond Earth. It would mean the cosmos is threaded with hidden symmetries, unseen dimensions, perhaps even other universes overlapping with our own. And in this frozen land, at the bottom of the world, those truths brushed against reality. The thought haunted Don in his solitude. If ancient beings had once known these truths, if the maps were not errors but memories, then perhaps their knowledge was not only geographic but cosmic. Perhaps what they preserved was not merely a vision of Antarctica without ice, but a vision of Earth as a gateway, a point of contact with deeper laws of the universe. The ice itself seemed to listen. The sky above Antarctica is the clearest on Earth, free from pollution, radio noise, and heat. Telescopes here trace the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang. Neutrino detectors catch particles from galaxies billions of light-years away. Cosmic rays strike with impossible force. Every layer of this continent, from the ancient ice to the sky beyond, becomes an archive of the universe itself. And within this archive, anomalies whisper. For Don, the escalation was no longer only scientific. It was existential. The deeper he looked, the more Antarctica appeared not as a passive land, but as an active threshold. It preserved life sealed away for millions of years. It hid geometries beneath its frozen shell. It caught particles from across the universe. It revealed, in silence, that Earth is not isolated but entangled with the cosmos. The line between geology and physics, between history and cosmology, began to dissolve. Antarctica was not only Earth's last frontier. It was its deepest mirror, a place where the planet touches both its own forgotten past and the vast unknown of the universe. The mystery escalated, not with answers, but with layers of uncertainty. Each discovery lakes alive with microbes, maps that should not exist, radar geometries, impossible particles, wove into a single, haunting question. What is Antarctica? A frozen continent? A geological vault? Or something more? A crossroads where Earth itself brushes against other dimensions of space, time, and memory? The echoes of cosmic physics only deepen the obsession. For Dawn, the pursuit was no longer about data alone. It had become mythic. The frozen continent was not simply a place of ice, but a riddle of existence, a question written in geometry and light. And as he stood upon the endless white plateau, beneath a sky pricked with stars, Dawn reflected on the weight of it all. Perhaps Antarctica is not only the end of the Earth, but the beginning of something else, a threshold where the known world fractures and the unknown waits.